Hello guys, you can check out our online store. It's called Rudo the African Collection. On that platform you can get hoodies, you can get t-shirts, you can get tank tops, you can get bottles, and you can also get mugs, all with beautiful African designs. Find the link in our bio. Thank you very much.
Massive turnouts on the streets of Niamey, the capital of Niger Republic, as Nigerians call for the removal of France and the influence of France in their country.
La coopération avec la France, on n'en a pas besoin. On a longtemps dit on n'en a pas besoin à la France. On n'a pas besoin de la France. Qu'elle quitte notre territoire. Elle est là pour aider nous. On ne veut pas de l'aide de la France. Qu'elle quitte.
Le monde doit comprendre que le malheur de l'Afrique, c'est la France, les autorités, parce que les Français, c'est des citoyens comme nous.
Les députés corrompus,
Ils sont dans ce pays-là. 10 ans, ils sont dans le pays-là. Où est un seul terroriste qu'ils ont attrapé.
Long live Putin and down with France. Some of the chants echoed by thousands of coup supporters marching through the streets of Niger's capital, Niamey. The unrest follows France's suspension of all development and financial aid to Niger, prompting some protesters to storm the French embassy and setting fire to its entrance.
Niger is resilient. We are resilient. If today the national budget has been inflated, tripled, quadrupled quickly, it's because of stealing. What we produce is more than enough for us to survive. So we really call on the armed forces, the security forces, the CNSP, really not to give in to any blackmail.
The people are suffering in this country. Nigerians shouldn't be living like this. The people are coming out to support the coup leaders because they are here to bring balance to the country.
The French government has condemned the coup and warned of retaliation if any of its citizens are harmed.
Africa, especially West Africa, is going through a whole lot of identity shift right now and is making a huge news globally. I deliberately use the phrase identity shift to steer your mind away from the usual narrative of warring African savages who cannot govern themselves towards the new narrative that is forming right now about an Africa that truly wants change and will do what it takes to make that change happen. Though I speak of the coup in Niger Republic and even the other regime changes that happened within the past few months in West Africa, this shift in identity is way beyond coups and military takeovers, for something much more deeper that is welling up on the inside of every African. We saw that in the NSAS movement that happened in Nigeria in 2020. I am aware that there are those who will want to call what is happening in Niger Republic undemocratic and savage. But what I see are young African patriots who are tired of the oppression of their people and are seeking true liberation and the chance to take charge of their own nation and destiny. It is a shift from the usual slave and servitude attitude of Africans towards politicians who are mostly puppets of foreign interests to that of taking a stand for an Africa that profits from its own natural resources. For how long will a people be called poor and beggars by the same European and Western world that create chaos in their countries through proxy wars, steal their natural resources either by force or by paying way less than the true market worth, and then also kill the people who try to say no to such atrocities? African people are simply tired and want to change for good. It was not really surprising to hear of the massive support the people of Niger are giving to the patriots who carried out the regime change and their unreserved public disdain for France, which happens to be the main culprit of the many years of oppression and natural resources theft and the puppeteering of their leaders. The people came out in their thousands to express their displeasure at how things are run in the country and to also tell France, the main elephant in the room, to leave their country alone. But what do you expect from a people who have watched for decades as mineral resources worth billions of dollars leave their country every year while they live in poverty and are called third world? Am I saying that coups and violence is the only way to change national or even continental narratives? Not at all. I do not support violence of any sort. But what option do you really have left when the system of government and even the justice system has been corrupted beyond being the hope of the very people it was supposed to serve? As expected, the French government has given a warning that they will attack Niger if there are violent attacks on French citizens or the interest of France in the nation of Niger. The big question is, what is France's interest in Niger that will require a French military intervention to protect?
And then we are talking about the French military personnel also there in that country. That is what is at stake. But the other thing that the media is not talking about is the uranium. So there's this company from France, Areva, which recently actually rebranded itself and changed the name to Orano. Orano, Areva, the same thing. So Orano has left some uranium material in the mines in Niger, and the EU is concerned that some of this material could find its way in the hands of terrorists, those Islamist jihadists in West Africa, and they can use it to make dirty bomb. And if they make that kind of a weapon, the target could be Europeans or the West. And then pollution, that is what the media is not going to talk about. Pollution is also there. The company Areva or Orano has left thousands and thousands of radioactive soil and material in the desert in Niger, and this waste which they have left there in the open is producing a gas called radon, which is radioactive. And once this gas or the strong winds in the desert spreads this radioactive dust, it is said that the surrounding population could be affected. They are going to get basically radioactive poisoning, cancer, and things like that. And according to a research by an NGO called Greenpeace, they also found that the soil and underground water in the area where 100,000 people live in not far from the mines was contaminated with this radioactive material. So, and then they go ahead to say in the report that these 100,000 people living in the area have no alternative but to keep drinking that water, even after being told that it is poisoned. So they have no other source of water, so they have to continue drinking it and hope that they'll survive some few more years. So the exposure is dangerous, and this is not something the media from the West is not going to talk about. They are more concerned with discussing the Western interests. That is the US base there, where the US is flying drones illegally over other countries' jurisdiction to hunt down the people they don't like. And the French interest, which is gold and uranium in Niger. So they are there to protect the mining operation in that country and any other country in West Africa for that matter.
The issues of the West or European interest in Africa is not just about the interest of France in Niger Republic, but the overall interest of the outside world in Africa, and for which slavery, colonialism, and neo-colonialism were unleashed in the continent. For even the US also has an interest in Niger Republic.
When France withdrew their military presence in Mali and Burkina Faso, about 12,000 troops from those two countries was relocated to Niger, where France has a base. So that is what is at stake. The other thing is the United States. The US constructed the largest drone base in Africa, called the Niger Air Base 201, which is even larger than the one they have in Djibouti. At this base, which shares a fence with the Diori Haman International Airport in the capital Niamey, the US has 800 US personnel, so they have 800 civilian and military personnel at this base, and they operate several aircraft from that base among them the drones, about 5 MKU-9 Reaper armed unmanned aerial vehicles, also known as UAVs. They also have several jets, and they also have, refueling aircraft. They're like the Boeing C-135FR, which they use to refuel these drones for them to stay in air for more than 24 hours. And definitely they have about 10 transport aircraft, the C-130, Lockheed C-130 transport plane. They are there. So that is the interest the US is concerned about. 800 American military personnel are there.
There is a false and misleading Western capitalist narrative that says that subsistence farming will save Africa. That's not true. No nation has ever become developed by focusing on subsistence farming or just agriculture. True wealth creation and development comes from manufacturing of both goods and innovative services. We have China as a good example. It is painful to say that Africa is the only continent that exports 80% of its raw materials, either willingly or by force. Therefore, Africa is the world's largest producer of wealth for everyone on earth except its own people. I hear a lot of people say that the new source of wealth in Africa is digital wealth, information communication technology, internet and mobile banking technology. But how true is this claim? The foundation of the so-called information technology of today is also manufacturing. For every dollar that Africa makes from mobile phone technology and the internet, she generates at least $10,000 for the rest of the world. For the developed countries of the world to sustain their countries, they need unhindered access to Africa's raw materials. For example, hundreds of thousands of Congolese children work themselves to death in Congolese mines where they mine cobalt, earning $1 a day. Cobalt is used in making lithium batteries that power your mobile phones and cameras. The Republic of Congo is the world's largest producer of coltan. Coltan is essential in the production of mobile phones and tantalum capacitors that are used in almost every kind of electronic device.
The Democratic Republic of Congo is one of the poorest countries on earth. But it holds the world's richest deposits of cobalt. Now the race is on to mine the metal essential to making electric car batteries.
This is what people in this region are digging and dying for.
It's dangerous work. The massive industrial mines, mostly Chinese-owned, are a law unto themselves.
People are dying for lack of safety.
Corruption and violence are rampant. Small-scale or artisanal miners who work on the fringes of the big mines risk arrest, even death. Many are children. This report exposes the brutal cost of our green energy revolution.
Are we under arrest?
It's a story many don't want told.
Approximately 80% of the world's supply of coltan is found in the DRC. For the world to keep enjoying mobile phone technology, it must have unhindered access to tantalum from Congo. For your information, Congo is among the world's poorest countries. Niger Republic and Namibia are among the world's top producers of uranium. They are also among the world's poorest. Niger alone supplies France with the uranium required to power up their nuclear program and power stations, generating almost 80% of France's electricity via an estimated 59 nuclear plants. 1 out of every 3 light bulbs that are lit in France is thanks to the uranium from Niger Republic. However, in Niger, nearly 90% of the population has no access to electricity. For France to keep growing, it must have unhindered access to the uranium from Niger Republic. Talk about France fighting for its interest.
This is where they are building the largest nuclear fusion reactor in the world. Right now, I am inside the assembly hall of the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor in the south of France. And just behind me back there is where scientists and engineers are working to replicate what happens inside the sun. Now, this is so much more than just another energy project. It's a $22 billion science experiment between a whole host of nations all coming together to try and change how we generate power on this planet.
ITER's mission to create a new carbon-free energy source couldn't be more urgent. Global energy use is projected to nearly double by 2050, and we've got to drastically cut our use of fossil fuels. Some scientists hope that controlled nuclear fusion could be the holy grail of energy, but there's a catch. As it stands right now, no reactor has ever been able to produce more energy through nuclear fusion than it takes in.
Another example, over 70% of the world's cocoa is grown in Africa, which is exported. The world's chocolate business is valued at over $120 billion annually and is expected to grow up to $170 billion by 2024. Yes, it is the cocoa from Africa that powers the world's profitable chocolate business. For the world to keep enjoying chocolate and make money from it, it must have unhindered access to Africa's cocoa. For every $100 that Africa makes from the sales of cocoa, she generates at least $50,000, not for her people, but for the rest of the world.
Dark chocolate,
white chocolate,
biscuits,
hot chocolate,
pralines, bonbons, chocolate cake, chocolate bar.
From sweets to cosmetics, cocoa is everywhere. And 60 to 70% of it comes from just two countries, Ivory Coast and Ghana.
When you get to farmer households, you'll find that some may never even have tasted chocolate. Cocoa farmers largely live under the poverty line of $1.25 a day. So they really can't even afford the finished product.
The $100 billion chocolate industry is plagued by child labor and has historically been a leading cause of deforestation in both West African nations that receive a pittance for selling their beans.
The two countries alone represent less than 6% of the global value, including the taxes that the country is taking from exports. The farmer is probably getting less than 2%.
But soon, even these small percentages may be lost completely, as the main importer of West African beans, the European Union, gears up to ban cocoa with a harmful impact on the environment and human rights.
If there was legislation there that prevented West Africans from selling their cocoa, there would really be an issue for the economies, for the farmers, for the governments. And so that has added to, I think, what was initially more of a moral issue and made it very much an economic issue.
And these attempts by developed nations to force a cleanup of cocoa's supply chain, while potentially hurting the livelihoods of West African farmers, might not even achieve their desired goals.
Cocoa and chocolate world are stuck in colonialism, making the poor nations poorer and the rich nations richer, and that has not changed at all.
So basically, there is a garment of slavery and the narrative of subserviency that the world wants Africa to keep wearing even after the so-called independence of more than 60 years ago. And it's because of this so-called interest of the West and Europe that the subservient narrative in Africa has been kept in place. And anyone can say what they like about what is happening in West Africa, but the liberation of the people from every form of oppression should be paramount in the hearts of all Africans. As I have already said, there is a shift in the identity and posture of the African people, and this shift will go beyond the issue of coups and military takeovers. It is cultural, it is spiritual, and will not stop until Africa rises to become the true mother of humanity that she really is.